But Old White was baffled, as the knife seemed to disappear. Nick suspected trash workers accidentally let it escape during cleanup. If officers find the knife, they'll leave early for the weekend. But police search in vain at the dump. An unexpected find left the officers reeling. Discovering a severed hand was beyond their wildest imagination. Nick and Old White realized it was a murder, but strangely, police found no other body parts. Only certainty, the severed hand was a young lady's. To investigate further, they brought the severed hand back to the station. Nick wanted to confirm the identity by fingerprints, but knew it wasn't easy. However, Nick was just informed by a reporter about something bizarre. The severed hand was allegedly frozen, leaving him dumbfounded. When he wanted to clarify, the chief interrupted, eager to prevent gossip. He advised the reporter not to report anything before the police had results to avoid messing up the investigation. Then he promptly booted the chief. Seemed to hide a secret, but Nick's keen eye got some inside info through an officer. The officer told Nick they spent huge effort and money, but had nothing after 6 months. They failed to find other body parts, leaving identity unconfirmed. With no leads, this case was shrouded in mystery, which piqued Nick's curiosity. The officer told him that Detective Taylor was in charge of the case back then. The file was supposed to be in the cabinet, but when Nick looked, it was completely empty. Detective Taylor didn't seem thrilled about Nick's visit. Old White informed Nick that Taylor feared he might snatch his promotion and raise. Nick didn't care about that. Rather, he was more puzzled. He was sure this hand was unrelated to the victim. It belonged to another from 2 weeks ago. Through this severed hand, he noticed something unusual. The cracks were way more than those of an average girl her age. It seemed like the victim had been carefully protecting her fingertips. Nick sketched a profile of the victim, finding striking similarities to unsolved cases from years ago. Nick inferred it was the same killer. However, the chief seemed slightly panicked. The case ensnared everyone in the precinct, leaving them all exhausted, with no leads in sight. It was the darkest period for the precinct. The chief was extremely reluctant to believe it was a serial case. However, while Nick was waiting at a red light, he suddenly heard a peculiar traffic signal sound. The sound was like a light bulb going off in his brain. He immediately told Old White about this lead. Nick noticed some scribbles on his hand that seemed connected to the victim's notes. Upon learning about the victim's unique defect, they quickly narrowed down their search to local blind girls. Eventually, they discovered blind Angie missing for 2 months, and nobody knew her whereabouts. Nick suspected Angie was the severed hand's victim. To find clues, he and Old White visited her blind school. They sought out the principal to learn Ange's whereabouts, but she was just as clueless. However, Nick's inquiry revealed that Laura, a blind teacher, seemed to know Angie was set to leave and had interacted with the man who took her away. If the severed hand did belong to Angie, then the likely suspect must be that man. The principal agreed to allow them to visit Laura. Laura wasn't surprised by their arrival since they had already discussed it over the phone. However, she knew little, only remembering a man helped Angie with luggage at farewell. She knew the men shared Nick's smoking habit, but other than that, there were no standout impressions. Laura's testimony finally gave them a glimmer of hope, but as they left, they noticed a lot of scratches on the door. Laura explained that her friend left her dog in her care while they were out having fun, and Angie had a guide dog that the police discovered dead. No one really paid attention to the dog's death back then, but once Nick caught on, he rushed back to the dump, only to find out that the poor pooch didn't just pass away by accident. The bullet was .22 caliber. Nick asked colleagues to investigate, and found a shocking truth. Shockingly, there were 6 cases of shootings with the same caliber across California, all victims being women, many of whom were blind. This left a chill running down Nick's spine as he realized it could be a terrifying series of killings. He relayed the news to Old White, knowing nobody would believe. Nick wanted Old White to persuade the chief to set up a special task force to thoroughly investigate the blind school, but Old White, he felt that drawing conclusions based just on the bullet type that killed a dog was not persuasive at all. Stuck in a bind, Nick decided to investigate on his own, hoping to spark new leads by focusing on Laura. As time passed, Nick and Laura's interactions grew, evolving their relationship subtly. Nick learned Laura's past. A childhood car accident killed her parents and blinded her. Yet, from her memories, he gleaned some new info regarding the man who was looking for Anne. Although he wasn't sure about the specific model the guy drove, it wasn't until one day, when Nick took Laura out for a breather, that things clicked. He heard a familiar sound, and Laura quickly pointed it out to Nick. A van passed by, and after dropping Laura back at school, Nick spotted one of the same type of vans nearby. This reminded him of a close call he had while driving to school. Something was definitely amiss. He stealthily prepped to investigate and found the van's door ajar. Inside, he spotted cigarette butts and some strange powdery substance. Just then, the owner noticed Nick. He had to flash his badge, claiming he was checking the open door while on patrol. Nick asked for her license and inquired about the route. It was a female, not matching the killer's gender. Frequent interactions stirred the principal's discontent. He suspected Nick's motives. The chief urged Nick to get contact with Laura. The principal handed the chief a blind handwritten postcard, apologizing for Anger's abrupt departure. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. More exciting content is waiting for